Check. Well, he can't stay where he is. Alive or dead, your husband is something of an embarrassment. It's all right, it's bound to be a patient.
Benedict speaking. Hung up.
Why?
Oh, they do that sometimes. They can't bring themselves to speak, but they like to know that I'm here.
You remember you wanted me to go out and about, finding out what people felt, what they disliked.
Frustrations. Yes, breaking plates.
What?
Mrs. Benedict breaks plates. Now, that's really how it all started. And Benedict said, my poor Geoffrey, you'll be the first to go. And he was.
You're beyond me.
Hmm? Oh, I'm sorry. It was at a dinner party, and Benedict and his wife were there. And we were having a talk about the frustrations of government, even good government. You see, whatever one does, however well one plans it, someone is bound to get hurt. And Benedict seemed to suggest that the more one helped people, the more frustrated they became, and really is a typical piece of psychiatrist silliness. And then it built up into a general discussion on the nature of resistance, public violence, assassination, simple murder, kidnapping. Yes, it was, as I remember now, it was a blueprint for all that's happened since. Well, I suppose I wanted you to be a sort of extra eye, a warning system. Pointless.
My eyes got taken up with more absorbing matters. Self-pity, mainly. A Hobson falling in love.
I was in love with your mother.
I was in love with a widow. A young, not very merry widow. I'm still in love with her. However, it turns out her husband's still alive.
Check.
Norman was showing me a kind of dossier of victims. Pictures of the dead, damage. He'd also made one of the things you tried to do.
I?
The government. It's the same thing, isn't it, in a dictatorship?
I don't care for the word.
It only describes a form of government. It's not bad in itself. Like democracy. The Americans think democracy is a word meaning good. The Russians think it's a word meaning bad. But all it really means is a form of government.
Thank you, Chris. I can suck eggs.
Sorry. Anyway, Norman showed me both sides. Your work, your plans, and the opposition. He was very fair about it. Obviously, the G's provoke opposition, but you landed with the G's.
And I still seem to need them, however.
Nothing you've done or tried to do can justify the form opposition has taken. It's innocent people who suffer, innocent people caught up in violence. And looking at those pictures, studying the files, I felt... Well, I've always steered clear of your life, Father. I wouldn't go into the business. I've kept you at arm's length. Only now, for the first time, I felt like...
Joining?
Taking sides. You're under attack.
Yes. And as you say, it's the innocent people who get hurt. But ultimately, whose fault is that?
Hmm?
I mean, if opposition could take some other form, would it be violent? Does she still break plates, I wonder? They've sent their children abroad. Your lady's husband was locked up and has escaped.
Yes, Norman told me.
Indeed? You seem to be seeing a lot of him. I didn't know that you got on.
I don't. We don't. He's not offering friendship. He just tells me things he thinks I ought to know.
I'd say he'd seen her.
But you can't get far.
Mate.
You can't have been concentrating. Frank never wins at chess.
You mean I'm the embarrassment? If I hadn't killed him, you wouldn't be worried by the body?
Well, it wasn't exactly restful before.
No. We still didn't know what to do with him. An embarrassment, alive or dead. What an epitaph. He was happy in the rehabilitation centre before you arranged for him to escape. Stoned, but happy.
They killed most of the Class A prisoners after he'd gone, because one escape meant that the system wasn't secure anymore. Men I admired, quietly, painlessly, unexpectedly. An administrative decision.
An embarrassment, alive or dead.
If you're only looking for an epitaph, Out of His League might be a better one.
You sure we're in ours?
Time passes, I suppose, but I don't feel it.
No. It's like being between time, between the seconds. I feel strange, relaxed. If I were in bed tonight, I'd not be lying awake. If I were asleep, I wouldn't be dreaming.
Well, something has to be done with him. He can't just lie there stiffening up like a Roman candle. You've had some experience of dealing with bodies, Frank. Oh, I'm not trying to reproach you.
I know it.
Frank took Wilf down to the East End and left him against a wall. Wilf was in drag, so it was thought to be a sexual murder.
Is that what you plan to do?
Not to Tom, no.
You don't care to repeat your effects?
They'd trace the clothing.
Then,
Wait till the streets are deserted. Say 2:30 a.m. Strip him. Get the car around to the front. Put him in a big overcoat and shoes to cover getting him into the car. Pretend that he's drunk. Drive out of London. There are quiet bridges in the Thames Valley above Henley. Tip him into the river naked. Oh, he'll be found, of course, but there'd been nothing on him to show where he came from.
Very thorough.
Getting him into the car will be the tricky bit.
I don't see why he doesn't usually win at chess.
he works out all the moves, yours as well as his. It doesn't occur to him that other people can be stupid. There's no one in the street, anyway. Let's put Tom in the back. I suppose that's best. There they go.
Well, you've got the number of the car. There's no need for any one person to follow him for long. Once you know the direction he's going, you can radio ahead. No, he must not be stopped. I don't care if he's got 10 dead bodies. I don't care if he's got the entire cabinet in a cataleptic trance. I want to know what he does and where he goes. He can be approached. In fact, if he thinks he's actually fooling someone, that might encourage him. But he must not be arrested. He must not be alarmed. The man almost certainly has a suicide pill, and if he's scared, he may use it. And I must have him alive.
Who lives opposite?
I don't know. There wasn't a light. Does it matter?
No. I thought I saw the curtain move.
Don't say things like that unless you mean it.
I think we can guess the identity of his drunken friend. Dead? Your people think so, and it is likely.
Why did they kill him? An embarrassment?
Why did they bother to get him out of the centre?
Well, the explosion at Redditch.
Anyone could have done it. Almost anyone.
Well, you'll know soon enough.
Tomorrow, unless they lose him tonight.
I'll sit by the phone. You get some sleep.
No. We'll wait together. Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Your wife seems to have become a lot more tolerant lately.
Well, she knows I'm on nights this week.
Why now?
Might as well.
Well, you could go to bed.
I couldn't sleep. I'll take these back to the flat in the morning. It's where they came from.
I wouldn't go back to the flat if I were you.
A body? No, don't surprise me. Have you recovered it? Never mind. Take a boat and go after it. We know who the dead man was, but we'd like to find out how he died. If you're reasonably brisk, the fish won't have had time to take more than the merest nibble. And our friend? Yes, indeed, you must. I shouldn't care to lose him. Keep in radio contact as before. Yes, he's fairly sure to be going back home, but it doesn't do to take chances. They took an infrared photograph of him, tipping the body over the bridge. Once one knows who these people are, surprisingly easy to catch them.
Where then?
Frank will have to find you somewhere.
No, I'll find somewhere.
How?
I think I know someone who'd help.
You're Chris.
He is mine. Not sure that he is. I suppose I hope he is. Anyway, he'll help. It's his speciality, helping.
Let's go downstairs. Spooky up here with the wind.
Overconfidence. It's a fault, Dennis, in you as much as in Benedict.
How strange.
You don't acknowledge it.
No, I do. It's just the phrase, such and such, it's a fault. An echo. Somebody else used it.
One of my predecessors?
Quite the contrary. I didn't care for him. I wanted an idealistic G to impress Hobson. Gerald, the idealistic G. You remember he was...
Murdered, yeah. Kidnapped and murdered.
Priggish young man. Hobson liked him. I didn't.
Because he told you your faults.
You do that, and I haven't noticeably resented it.
You've grown noticeably more human. You're more prepared to have them. Do you see a doctor about your heart?
A specialist. I shall know this week. You think it's that? I accept the possibility of my own death and the ice begins to melt. It's rather neat, if it is that.
It'll be a bloody sight neater if the specialist tells you it's only wind and you freeze up again.
I shan't.
No?
Good. Excellent. Is she? Interesting. He's back.
Is she what?
His wife's waiting up.
Why is that interesting?
They think there's somebody with her.
Nobody's been in or out that house for the last 2 days without her people knowing.
Perhaps it's somebody who doesn't go in and out. Somebody who arrived before we started watching, and unlike our friend, still lives.
You should have let me get some equipment into that house. There's no range to speak of. Something as small as a cherry stone flipped in through the open window to lie on the carpet and be sucked up by the vacuum cleaner.
Not worth the chance.
No chance.
1 in 1,000. Still a chance. We'll know all we need to know when we take him. We'll take him tomorrow.
Well, he's an embarrassment now. It's only to the person who finds him. It's like something out of the Bible, isn't it? Some innocent pubescent girl goes down to the riverbank one morning, and there in the water, bobbing up and down in an eddy beneath the willows, there's a naked man. All the biology lessons suddenly make sense. It's there, the full equipment spread out before. Only, of course, he's dead. No good at all, no good at all.
We've got to get out of this. Get away, join the children. It's easy for you to work abroad. You've done enough here. I'm not cut out for Lady Macbeth.
No, I'm afraid I've got to go today. When can you get a flight? From Foulness, 1540. Right, I'll come around this morning and pick the tickets up. From Foulness, 1540.
Can do.
1540 from Foulness.
Good.
They're on the wing. I thought you didn't want him alarmed.
If he thinks he's leading the country at 1540, he's not alarmed. On the contrary, he's overconfident. It's a fault.
He's phoning the Home Office now.
Passports. Vaccination certificates up to date.
All this talk of killing.
Well, there should be a box with bits and pieces of foreign currency in this drawer.
People who knew too much.
Oh, $500 in traveller's checks.
Stopping their mouths.
They devalue the dollar so often nowadays, one can't keep up.
It's all gone. You were going to stop my mouth. Or at least I thought you were. And now it's all dissipated into coziness and packing.
There's no point. You don't know any Quarmbys except us, and when we've gone, you can say what you like. The only trouble would be if they picked you up before the plane left. It's an Air Canada flight, it can't be recalled.
Coziness and packing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Claire, I don't mean to be heartless. We leave you in danger, but we can't take you with us.
It's only a week since the phone rang. I've escaped. I'm hiding out in the Savanac forest. Seems like a lifetime. Every day a year, every hour. Except that's only 7 years, rather a short lifetime. What have I been doing exactly? I mean, what's my crime when they pick me up?
I don't know. Conniving at escape, I suppose, aiding and abetting. I haven't thought of it like that. Anyway, I shouldn't imagine they'll play it by the book.
Was I conniving when I killed him? Giving someone a pill, it doesn't seem at all like killing, more like medicine. Then he's dead. You don't feel the cause and effect. I'll phone Chris when the phone's free.
Well, it's the twins. Yet Tony's sick and the other one, well, it looks like meningitis. We're both going. Well, that's the point today, I'm afraid. This afternoon, it's absurdly inconvenient. I'm more sorry than I can say. Well, I've spoken to the Home Office, and all that side of things can be piled onto Baxter's plate for the time being if you'd look after the patients. Well, no, there's nothing complicated. There's an attempted suicide. Tries it every other week. Just have to let him succeed if you can't cope. Yeah, Miss Perry has all the files, and she'll arrange to transfer the appointments for you.
Unloading his patients. Same excuse, the kid's ill, meningitis. They both have to fly to Canada immediately. He's getting a lot of sympathy.
That's a good story.
He'll have to go out to pick the tickets up and go to the bank for some money. Will you let him get that far?
No, I've got a valid excuse now to go and see him. I'll phone at once.
Yeah, just a minute. There's someone else on the line. Guess who?
Claire Weston,
Right. And who's she phoning?
Christopher Hobson.
Right again.
They're letting her go.
She wasn't a prisoner, more an accomplice. She's not giving much away. I suppose if you've got to go into hiding with the Prime Minister's son, isn't a bad choice. They don't know we're watching the house. They don't know anybody's onto them at all. He's going round.
I don't want him there when we arrive.
Well, if they know you're arriving, they won't want him to stay. Funny, they killed the husband readily enough. It would have been far safer to kill the wife. Now, the line's free now.
Okay. Dr. Benedict, this is Norman. I was sorry to hear about your little boy. Yes, the Home Office let me know. There's rather a worrying piece of business in the pipeline. I'd like your advice.
Well, yes, it is. It is a bit inconvenient. Couldn't it wait until I get back? Oh, yes, I see. We're flying from Foulness this afternoon. Yes, of course my wife's going with me. We're both rather upset. Would you want me to come to you? Oh, well, that's very good of you. If you're sure it won't take more than half an hour, I was on my way to the bank.
I'd feel easier if I had your reaction before asking the Prime Minister for permission to go ahead. I'll bring the papers with me. Not at all. Oh, and you'll let us know if there's anything we can do officially to help you in this sad journey. Yeah. Goodbye. We'll give him a little while to get rid of our heir apparent, and then go round.
Heir apparent.
Ah, Chris. Small joke. I make them nowadays.
Do you want to
Yes?
change or anything?
I haven't anything to change into. They're all Tom's things in there.
It's a bit cloak and dagger.
Who wants dirty ferrets?
I do. Welcome home.
There, I knew it.
I'll get it.
But he's a murderer. You don't have to protect him.
I'm a murderer too, love. Murderess. I'm protecting myself. I killed Tom. I had to. At least I thought I had to.
Euthanasia.
Different word for the same thing. Anyway, Frank's not a murderer if I'm not. Not really. I mean, he is, but it was political, not personal.
Makes it worse.
When I was just a patient of his, I didn't care for him. But now I like him. I'm sorry for him. I like them both.
My colleague, Mr. Arnold.
How do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do?
Would you like to come into the office?
No, it's quite all right.
Glass of sherry.
How very kind.
I'll do it. Really sherry, or would you prefer scotch?
I prefer a dry sherry. I rarely drink spirits.
Just tonic.
Scotch for me, please, love. You wanted my advice?
It's a delicate matter.
Well, then, hadn't we better go into that?
Concerns your wife.
Concerns me.
Well, both of you. There, now, I've worried you. I didn't mean to. Please,
Well, perhaps it would worry us less if you explained.
my precise intention. It wouldn't, you see, have arisen at all if it hadn't been for this unfortunate, thank you, for the matter of your child's illness. I was distressed to hear of it. Should have begun by offering my sympathies. How impolite you must think of me.
It concerns my son's illness?
Well, they'd have taken you off the aircraft. Or, in point of fact, wouldn't have allowed you on. Or perhaps I should begin at the beginning.
Please do.
You're not having a drink?
What? No, not just at the moment.
Well, the beginning in this case was some time ago, a fortnight?
I'd say a fortnight.
It's no secret to you that there's been unrest. Censorship keeps the details from most of the population, but you're close enough to the Home Office to be aware.
Well, I know there's been unrest. I don't know how much.
My dear Dr. Benedict, I don't know how much. One knows as it happens. Much may happen that one never knows. However, it occurred to us, it was Christopher Hobson's idea, it occurred to us that a man dedicated to resistance might take the precaution of sending his family out of the country. No hostages to fortune, you see. We decided to run a check on all unaccompanied families sent out of the country for an indeterminate stay. Easy to do, once we'd had the idea.
And found that I had.
Oh, many people had. Long list. Working through it. Routine inquiries. Eliminating people.
Did you eliminate me?
That's the point. I haven't got to you. I say we. It's a police matter. I saw the file myself, and I thought it wasn't suitable that a man of your eminence, well, your usefulness, should be bothered. I said, you remember, I said, I don't want them bothering Benedict. Tell them to leave him till the end.
Yes, you did. He did.
Silly of me.
May one ask why? Why silly?
Nobody on the list may leave the country until he's been cleared. When I learned of your personal tragedy, the lad's illness, I thought the best thing I could do was to come round and get you clearance myself.
Oh, well, that's very good of you.
I don't pretend everything my father's done is right. But Norman showed me a file. People who died. Innocent people. I don't like the G's, nor does my father, but how do you deal with... The anarchists I knew were gentle people. They had nothing to do with bombing and wanton murder.
Kill the pigs.
What?
They used to chalk it on walls.
Well, there's a lot of difference between chalking something on a wall and actually doing it.
Anyway, Frank's not an anarchist.
What is he then?
I'm not sure. You could say he's doing it for democracy, I suppose.
Bully for him.
Why they wanted Tom out, why they arranged for him to escape. They wanted him to blow up the Guardian HQ at Redditch and get killed doing it. I suppose they'd have seen he was killed. Then the government would think the resistance was communist and stop looking for Qualmbies. Sounds a bit cold-blooded, put like that.
Innocent people. Your Tom. That boy. It was a young officer killed at Redditch. They had to scrape his guts off the architecture. He'd only been commissioned for 2 months. No wonder the G's get brutalized. It's like that mess in Ulster.
Tom wasn't innocent. He'd killed people, you could say murdered, before they caught him and locked him up.
You're glad he's dead.
You mean you are?
We both are.
I went to see him at the rehabilitation centre and they were feeding him hash. I thought, how dare you be so happy? You know how contented people get when they're slightly stoned the whole time. I thought, I've given up my lover, my freedom. I'll never be rid of you because you're my husband and you dare to be happy.
What a mess.
After he escaped, they killed a lot of the Class A prisoners, Frank said, because the system wasn't secure anymore.
What a mess.
He said that as if he wanted to clear it up.
Well, I am my father's son.
I'm not sure what clearing means.
In your case, very little. I hope you won't think it seems too much like prying into your private affairs if I ask you why did you send your children abroad?
Well, to my brother in Canada.
Yes?
Well, he teaches at Upper Canada College.
You misunderstand me. I didn't say where. I'm sure they're well looked after. I said why.
Well, it's quite usual for children to visit an uncle or an aunt. Does one have to have a reason?
6 years old. It seems young to... Oh, I'm not very good at asking personal questions. Inspector, perhaps?
Inspector.
CID. Now, I think Mr. Norman felt, well, we all felt that being separated from their parents at 6 years old and sent so far on their own...
They're very self-reliant.
Yes, they must be.
What an unusual ring.
What?
Your ring, I was admiring it.
It's just a signet ring.
Merci.
It's a perfectly ordinary ring.
A crest. Yes, that makes it acceptable. In my position, excuse me, in my position, one can't really wear jewellery. And yet I've often hankered for some small piece of personal adornment. As a psychiatrist, you'd understand that.
Yes.
You don't mind if I try it on. Silver. Yes, I agree. I prefer silver. Gold is flashy in itself and an incitement to robbery.
Do you think I could have some more tonic?
Please.
We were asking, weren't we, about the children?
Do you think I might have my ring back?
No, I don't think so. Your wife doesn't wear one. You do, she doesn't.
Or earrings?
She doesn't care for jewellery.
You mean she knows nothing? Certainly, last time you and I met, you were, if I may say so, on the other side. You'd left your husband.
I came back.
Yes, you're right. She knows nothing.
And might consequently be allowed to proceed to Canada.
Yes.
It was Weston's body last night, I take it. Unnecessary question. I know it was. I actually have an infrared photograph of you tipping it over the bridge.
Excuse me?
The house is under very close surveillance. Mrs. Weston was allowed to leave, particularly when one considers who came to get her. But your wife wouldn't.
Don't be too confident. If she comes out of that room with a machine gun, we'll both look remarkably silly.
Admirable caution. Will she? A return with the machine gun?
No.
Suicide.
It doesn't matter. It's the man we need.
Well, she hasn't gone in there to shell peas.
It's Eleanor Benedict. We met at... Yes. Yes, Look, I'm sorry, I haven't very much time, and it isn't easy to explain. I'm speaking from my home. You know where it is? Please, could you come here at once? Yes, at once. It's very urgent.
what good do you think it'll do? He'd have been told anyway. I'd have told him myself. He's the Prime Minister. One doesn't keep things from him.
Oh, I think one does.
Not small things, unimportant, minor...
Murders.
Miscalculations, minor matters that might cause him worry or distress. Destructive, not constructive, never anything important. Clearly, where matters of state are concerned, it might sometimes be necessary to guide, to...
Manipulate.
He's the best Prime Minister we have. There's no alternative to him.
You've been looking for alternatives, then?
This is an important matter, and he would have been told.
Afterwards. I'd rather he knew now.
Mrs. Benedict, there's no doubt of your husband's guilt. The Prime Minister won't save him, and won't wish to save him.
I never thought he would.
Then?
Will you let him in, or shall I?
It's my house. I'll let him in.
Just a minute.
Oh, do come with me by all means. Who knows what goodies I may have concealed in the hall.
You expect a magic wand?
No. It's not a nightmare. We shan't wake up. I am rather fond of my children. That's not unnatural in mothers. But every day parents die or are killed in quite ordinary ways, road accidents. Far more people in almost every country in the world are killed on the roads than in, what would you call it, anti-government activities. And the children do cope somehow.
Come this way, please.
Thank you. Ah. Well, if Norman's here, you're right. It's clearly urgent. He doesn't waste his time on the mere niceties of social intercourse. But surely Inspector Arnold should be looking after my safety, not yours.
He is. An important matter of state security is involved.
Exactly. State security, not my security. Now, you have the whole of the CID to choose from, to say nothing of military intelligence and the Guardians, and you picked my own personal security officer, my very own private detective.
Since, however, you are now here, Prime Minister, perhaps you'll agree the position has been regularized and we may move on?
Except that it wasn't, shall we bear in mind, you, Norman, who regularized it. May I? Jim? Well, my dear?
Mr. Norman has discovered that my husband has been engaged in resistance to your government. He discovered it rather late. We were leaving today for Canada. You know the sort of thing, fly at once, all is lost. Well, it was rather more lost than Frank thought. They were already watching the house, tapping the telephones, taking infrared pictures in the dark. Having a good laugh, I dare say, at the little victim so unconscious they've been discovered. Like looking at lovers through a two-way mirror. I suppose the whole house is riddled with hidden microphones.
No, it isn't.
Then, just as we were about to go, they moved in.
Been going on for some time, then?
I told you Benedict was under suspicion. He'd sent his children abroad.
But you didn't tell me that
I
you
would
were-
have done.
When you were done?
When we were done, I think.
Why?
Tell him, Frank. That's why I got him
You
here.
dragged the Prime Minister out here merely
Tell him, Frank. There isn't any doubt about it. My husband has killed people. Geoffrey Hollis's death. He was responsible for it. He helped to plan it. And others too, more than I know, probably. I'm not trying to save his life. I know he's bound to be punished. What do you do to political criminals? Shoot them, hang them, strangle them with piano wire? You can't very well use that injection thing you give to ordinary murderers because he knows about it. Tell him, Frank. It's not your life I'm trying to save.
What are you trying to save?
His work. His pride, at most. And other people.
What other people?
If you think you can bargain... for a
Little man! Little man! You don't know anything about what I think. I mean other people. Literally other people. I don't know how many. Lots. Because it could stop.
Yes.
You see, you couldn't get many names out of Frank, whatever methods you used, because his organization doesn't work like that. They work independently. They don't know each other. What was it, Frank? Like seeds blown in the wind. But the point is, if Frank's right, if it hasn't gone wrong, the point is that they all want the same thing. And if you gave it to them, that wouldn't save my husband, but it would make what he's done worthwhile.
Impertinence.
And save so much violence. So many other people.
Yes.
You know it. We spoke of it, the logic of it.
Yes.
The logic of resistance is to provoke the government into violent and tyrannical acts, to brutalize it. Because if that goes far enough, the majority of the people will turn against it.
The logic's poor. It's faulty logic.
Yes?
The majority of any population will always be apathetic if in the 1980s a government is prepared to use every modern means of manipulating opinion and repressing opposition. It can continue to function without any popular backing at all.
Both points of view seem to me to be almost equally contemptible.
Frank's has refinement. It concerns you.
Yes?
I believe that you yourself would see the logic of this. Perhaps that you'd even remember our conversation. I believe that the time would come when you'd see that the brutalization had begun and could only get worse. I believe that when that time came, you'd say to yourself, what I'm doing is worse than what I came into power to cure. And that you'd then reverse your policies and return.
To democracy?
To freedom.
Suicide? You said so yourself. Democracy is a form of group suicide.
And you think that the time has come?
Well, if it hasn't, it soon will.
Well, what makes you think that I myself am free? Isn't it the accepted Marxist view of history that there are no free acts by individuals, only the continuing fight between capital and labor, which ends when capitalism is finally defeated and the dictatorship of the proletariat begins? Well, under that view, I shouldn't be able to reverse anything. There'd be too many people with an interest in stopping me.
I'm not a Marxist. You are free.
Yes, I believe I am. What an interesting chest set. Well, my own is rather more old-fashioned. Well, in 5 years, perhaps 10, the Prime Minister wouldn't be free. Too many entrenched interests. But these are still new days. I could go into reverse. You see, I'm not a prisoner of the capitalists. They don't like this government very much. Oh, I've given them industrial peace, but at the cost of holding down prices and dividends in any way. The bigger industrialists prefer labor trouble, drives their weaker competitors out of business. And the civil service wouldn't mind. They keep their jobs. Even you, Norman. The cabinet would still need a secretary. Only the Gs might resist it. General's dead. I don't think the area commanders are likely to combine. And if we do the job decently and see the senior officers don't lose rank or pay, I think they could be disbanded without loss of face. In fact, we've had contingency plans for disbanding them for so long. Really would be a pleasure to put them into effect. Oh, yes, could be done.
And will you?
I should have been in power 5 years. That's the length of a parliament.
And would be again. You'd probably be re-elected.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
You don't think you'd do it? Or you don't think you'd be re-elected?
Do you remember Plan A? The Class A political prisoners in the rehabilitation centre efficiently liquidated after Weston's escape, and other killings? I often didn't know about them, but the responsibility is mine. I should be as likely to stand trial as you.
Not quite as likely.
You failed to allow, I think, for that contingency. The government must go on. Can't go back.
I said I was free, Norman. Free of fear as well. Fairly free. If I were impeached and had to stand trial as a sort of peacetime war criminal, I shouldn't enjoy it. But I don't fear it. Mrs. Benedict, there was no need to send for me. As Norman says, I can't save your husband. He's been involved in a lot of killings, and he must be executed. As for the rest, you were right, Dr. Benedict. I am sickened and repelled by what we are beginning to do. I feel myself ultimately responsible for the death of innocent people. I was already beginning to see the logic. Now mark me how I will undo myself.
I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this...
Parliament will be recalled and dissolved, and there'll be free elections.
Brian, Sir Timothy has become an active danger to national security. Would you...
I'd have preferred a written order, but I suppose there's no time for it.
afterwards? I'm afraid you cease to be the best Prime Minister we have. Not dead, Brian. Gun.
4 shots.
It's enough. Go to the door and keep our people out until I say so. Please believe that I'd always hoped to avoid any such occurrence as this. It'll be extremely difficult to replace Hobson, and clearly nobody must know how he came to die.
You'll have to kill us then.
If necessary. To make problems, I prefer not to do so.
Then?
Your husband killed him.
No.
That'll be said anyway. The mere improbability of your having shot the Prime Minister and yourselves in the presence of 2 other people and left them both alive won't be allowed to alter the official account, though I prefer something a little easier to swallow. Your husband killed him and committed suicide immediately afterwards, painlessly.
She said no, and I do.
You love your wife, I think?
You know I do.
And you, your children, as you said?
You heard me say so.
You're both booked on a flight to Toronto. One of you might still be able to catch it.
Might be.
Will be. You were distressed when I took this from you. Now you see I'm giving it to you back.
No, Frank.
Ah. Well, consider it logically. Whatever happens, you'll die, and so you should. You're a murderer. The law, as it stands, is sufficient to convict your wife as an accomplice, so legally she should suffer death as well. But as I've said, I should have to shoot you both. Though I could hardly miss you at this range, I'm an indifferent shot. It might take more than 1 bullet. But if you cooperate, one of you will live to rejoin your children. The other will die without pay.
Major point.
Yeah. Now look at it from the resistance point of view. The Cornby?
Yes.
The Cornby point of view. You gambled on Hobson's changing his mind. He did change it, but you lost your gamble anyway because one was forced to dispose of him. Great nuisance. But if I understand your long-term intention, the resistance should provoke the government to brutal actions until the population turns against us. That can still happen. With Hobson out of the way, we shall become much more brutal, much more quickly, I promise you that. So you don't lose. You have to die. But that was always possible. If one of my men had approached you last night as you were disposing of Weston's body, you'd have used that very pill. And your wife lives.
It's a good case, logically.
I'm afraid I can't give you long to consider it.
Now,
I can't advise you.
every instinct in you says don't cooperate, and so does mine. But I'm like Tim Hobson in a way. I've lived by logic.
Not only by logic.
Mainly. And when I was particularly logical, you threw plates.
Yes?
Don't throw anything now.
Wait.
Yes?
I could say what I like in Canada. I could tell them all the truth.
Indeed, yes. Whom in Britain would it hurt? Not that many people would be likely to believe such an extraordinary story from a vindictive wife. You may allow our people in now, Inspector Arnold, and send for Christopher Hobson. I want him here. And please see personally that Mrs. Benedict catches her flight. Dear Mrs. Benedict, I can't tell you how sorry I am that you should have been caught up in such an unhappy affair.
I was beginning to get close to him.
The wife, you see, had actually worked with us. She was the goddaughter of one of your father's oldest friends.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming anybody.
Not very generous. More than I should be.
Am I? Well, it may pass. What happens next?
That's the biggest problem. I can't ask you to be concerned with it. And yet,
Yeah.
I must ask.
Well,
The problem is continuity. Quite simply, carrying on your father's work.
you can't mean...
I do mean. But no member of the cabinet has your father's stature or authority, and not one of them would accept any of the others as his superior. It's the same with the Guardian's area commanders. I myself, no following, no position. I'm a natural subordinate. In the recent past, such a situation couldn't arise. A knockout election among members of a parliamentary party, sort of survival of the least offensive, or in extreme cases, a summons from the throne. These determine the leadership. We've no parties. There's no throne. We shall be in danger of a civil war unless we can find a leader who has no obvious rival. You have one simple, strong advantage. You're your father's son.
When Oliver Cromwell died, his son Richard made a very poor hash of government.
He lacked ability. Do you?
No. I have ability.
And inclination?
I'm tired of doing nothing.
I'll see to the stage management.
One thing.
Yeah?
I intend to marry. I'm sorry, Claire. I would have asked, but this has come to me very quickly. I intend to marry Mrs. Weston. Can you think of any reason against it?
A Prime Minister should be married.
No reason, then.
I've always considered Mrs. Weston as an innocent person caught up in circumstances beyond her control. And at least there can no longer be any doubt that her husband is in fact dead.
No, we can be sure of that.
Let me be the first to wish you happiness.